Before we dive into a video in which we found out that the portal gun was as superfluous to the plot of Portal 2 as ethics are to Aperture, here's a quick word from my sponsor. Oh yes, Opera GX is a special version of the Opera browser built specifically for gamers and is perfect for me. See, my problem is that my PC isn't the greatest. That's why I normally can't keep my internet browsers open while playing games, let alone listen to music, because it just eats up all of my RAM and kills my game's performance faster than my own performance in them. But thanks to Opera GX, you can limit how much RAM, CPU, and even network bandwidth is actually being used, which substantially improves performance and allows you to keep as many tabs open at once as you like. It also allows you to integrate social media apps like Discord, Twitch, and TikTok right into the sidebar, so you don't even have to have them open at all times separately to receive the notifications. You can also stay up to date with all gaming news and deals using the GX Corner, and there's even a calendar for new game releases. I didn't even know about 90% of these games before using this browser. Oh, and one of my favorite features has got to be forcing dark mode on all websites. Because my goodness, it's 2023 and no one likes to get flashbanged when they go online. Opera GX is also available on mobile and can be easily connected to the desktop version. So, if you like games and browsing the internet as much as I do, then click my personal link below or use this QR code to download Opera GX today. And now, let's find out why even Portal 2 doesn't actually live up to its name. A while back, I made a video in which I argued that all events from Portal 1, both the initial testing and Chell's eventual escape, were all predetermined by GLaDOS, and that the player was never truly in control over anything. What I said in that video is pretty relevant to this one, as I intentionally ignored the game's sequel for the sake of my own theory. So if you haven't seen it yet, I'd recommend checking it out, but you're not going to be missing anything important. The most relevant aspect is that I argued that Portal 1 was never actually about testing your ability to solve puzzles using portals, but about conducting other, unrelated experiments, if any at all. While I don't think it's quite as ambiguous in Portal 2, I still believe that not even the sequel to the game that invented the concept of thinking with portals is really about that in any meaningful way. Even though the portal gun is a massive leap forward in the field of science, it's no more important to Aperture than the disposable cubes you use during a test or the pressure plates you place them on. And the majority of things you do in the game, if any at all, are really for the sake of science. In actuality, there are events going on in the background, some of which you're not aware of, and some not even GLaDOS and Wheatley might know about. That's right, Portal 2 isn't about portals either. Fittingly, Portal 2 features two separate game modes, the single player and multiplayer. Let's begin by analyzing the multiplayer first, since that was actually the original plan of this and the previous video, and because what I'm going to point out likely isn't going to surprise many people. The Cooperative testing initiative, starring the two androids Atlas and Pea-Body, is so evidently not about actual portal testing that the game doesn't even attempt to try to hide that fact. Like with the first video, portals are part of the puzzles, but it's very obvious that they only make up half of the experiments, if any at all. Instead, everything is designed in such a way that both the in-universe test subjects, as well as the real-world players, have to work together as a team in order to solve problems by trusting each other, instead of just their own skills. I'm just kidding, they clearly expect you to ignore all that and mess with each other instead. Many of the chambers involve challenges that require one player to proceed into a dangerous situation while having to rely on the other player making sure they don't die a violent death. Such as having to balance over light bridges, carrying a ball over a pit that only closes up when the other player is standing on a button, and especially the giant machines whose sole purpose is crushing whoever is walking through them. But of course, being faced with such power, people are absolutely going to abuse it in order to mess up the partner's steps.
Well, first I do this. And screw the rest of the plan.
Why? Because it's funny. More fun than just solving the puzzles normally for sure. And this is all completely intentional, as reported by Digital Gaming.
Although the developers apparently thought it was pretty funny to see human test subjects plummet to their deaths, it caused playtesters to be far more cautious in co-op, as they didn't want to die and fail the test chamber. Their solution was to replace the human models with robots, and make it clear to players that robots can respawn by having them disassembled at the end of every test chamber.
I mean, ever wonder why so many test chambers involve actively redirecting lasers? Because you can point them at the other player to blow them up. And why do you more often get spheres, edgeless safety cubes, instead of regular cubes? because it's easier for them to roll off of platforms into toxic goo, completely reversing your progress.
Behind you, don't let it roll off. I will...
I legitimately didn't even know. I thought it was gonna open the door.
I need a moment.
GLaDOS even randomly hands out compliments, insults, accomplices, some of them only being audible to one of the players at a time.
I can't bite my tongue anymore. You could solve this puzzle faster on your own. Orange is dragging you down. There, I've said it. Blue, do you feel betrayed by Orange for telling me those horrible things about you?
And the main hub also keeps track of meaningless statistics that nobody cares about, like how many steps the individual players have taken or how many portals they created. Why? Just to pit them against each other and to get them to bicker even more than they already do. It's not enough that you died, GLaDOS has to point out that your partner is in favor of it.
Orange, that transpired just as you said it would.
And this works both from an in-universe perspective and from a meta standpoint. Valve quickly figured that it's more fun if players don't work together, because naturally, humans like pulling pranks on others or doing selfish things for their own amusement. So instead of preventing that, they encouraged it at every opportunity. Same reason as for the crown item in Super Mario 3D World's multiplayer. You get it by achieving the highest score, but other players can steal it from you, and best of all, it's entirely cosmetic. In Portal 2's world, GLaDOS is doing the same, just for the sake of science instead of gaming experiences. Formerly, these tests were designed for the cooperation of human subjects, but now she has AI. So she's likely trying to see if these robots are capable of not only working together, but acting like humans, i.e. betraying each other, even though as machines they have no reason to do that. This is going to kill me, it's going to kill me.
Oh yeah, I forgot that was there.
She will even get them to act like humans by asking them to taunt or wave, and the robots can even be customized with heads and skins, actions that are completely superfluous for the puzzles, but actions that people are fond of doing. And since GLaDOS is testing them for human behavior, she obviously also wants to mess with their psyche, as she does in single player. By lying to them, demeaning them, and even calling them monsters for destroying, quote, one of us when they blow up a turret, and then following it up by saying they're just as disposable as the robots themselves. It's also pretty obvious that you're not entirely solving these tests for science, but for an ulterior motive. GLaDOS repeatedly has you walk outside of test chambers to collect blueprints and other important data. The reason behind that is that she wants to locate a hidden vault full of human test subjects, since she admits using robots isn't doing it for her.
Those other courses were fun, but let's be honest. I need human test subjects for it to be science.
While she is lying to them about the true nature of the adventures, I highly doubt she's doing it as part of yet another experiment, but just because she's afraid they might refuse to continue testing if they realize they're gonna be replaced.
Very good. You found those useless blueprints. Well, I do need you to be in the room so I can see them. I want to be clear. There's no reason whatsoever for you to look at them.
And even if some of the rooms behind the scenes look like they're structured like puzzles designed to be solved by test subjects, with portal servers being everywhere, I don't think anything could be gained by making people, or robots, believe they're going off the grid. In this case, I think it's really a coincidence. But worth pointing out is that even the actual co-op chambers weren't initially just about portals.
The tests were nothing more than 5 minutes of them walking, followed by me praising them for another 10 minutes on how well they walked.
So keep that in mind as we now take a look at the single player and how it's also very much not about portals either. Portal 2 clarifies a few things that weren't as clear previously, which served as the basis for my arguments in the first video. Aperture really does exist as a place where scientists were testing for all kinds of things, as evidenced by your fall into the abandoned parts of the facility. Likewise, the eventual escape from that Portal 1 wasn't something GLaDOS ever intended, and she did try to stop you. The only reason you were able to get away was because of a character named Dark Redman, who even woke you up in the first place. But a few things still apply in Portal 2. GLaDOS's repertoire still includes messing with you psychologically by insulting and lying to you. However, here it seems to be way more personal, as she repeatedly blames you for murdering her and calls you fat, ugly, and unloved. She even brings back the companion cube only to describe it as disposable and destroying it several times in a row, despite making a spectacle of it in the prequel.
Oh well, we have warehouses full of the things. Absolutely worthless. I'm happy to get rid of them.
And she also completely destroys any relationship you thought you had to it.
Any feelings you think it has for you are simply byproducts of your sad, empty life.
Likewise, the danger of the tests is very much intentional and not just a byproduct of shoddy upkeep.
Okay, so the bad news is the tests are my tests now, so they can kill us.
Knowing this, 3 questions about the plot arise. 1. Are Aperture, GLaDOS, and even Wheatley truly testing whether or not subjects are able to think with portals? 2. If not, what are they testing instead? And 3. Are they even testing anything at all, or are they trying to do something else? Firstly, it's important to clarify whether or not the main AI, GLaDOS and Wheatley, even have to conduct any tests in the first place, because if they don't, it puts a lot of things into question. It seems like a clear answer, as Wheatley explains he feels an urge for it.
I have to test all the time, or I get this itch. You know, it must be hardwired into the system or something. Oh, but I tell you, when I do test, oh man alive, nothing feels better. It's just that's why I've got to test. That's why I've got to test.
Having subjects solve the same puzzles also doesn't supply them with the same sense of satisfaction.
Since making tests is so difficult, why don't you just keep solving this test? And nothing. Alright, can't blame me for trying.
They even get punished if they attempt to spoil the solution to the puzzles, which causes them great anguish.
See that button over there, alright? You just need to...
So, testing is very much important to them. However, GLaDOS clarifies that this sense of euphoria eventually wanes, similar to drug overuse.
The body he's squatting in, my body, has a built-in euphoric response to testing. Eventually, you build up a resistance to it. It can get a little unbearable.
This means that unless the AI had other motivations, such as science in the case of GLaDOS, they'll quickly go insane. It could be that she's lying about this, but we can definitely see Wheatley getting frustrated over time, and I doubt that both of them are putting on such a massive act together for the sake of fooling you. However, if GLaDOS really had to conduct experiments, then her wanting to kill you in the beginning, or even just you dying via failing a test, would be throwing herself an unnecessary wrench in the plans. And like I said at the beginning, she does need humans. Again, it could be lying, but it would also be a bad idea in general for her to kill the only test subject she has left to her knowledge after such a long time. So it's very likely she doesn't really feel this urge at all anymore, not in Portal 1 and especially not in Portal 2, and that she just put you through all these puzzles for the sake of science. Wheatley very much does still feel this urge, but he doesn't plan ahead enough for him to even consider the implications of losing his sole lab rat, and we never see whether he can overcome it like GLaDOS at the end. It's still up in the air whether they have to test portals specifically. Wheatley does get shocked when he attempts to tell you the solution to a puzzle, but it could also be interpreted as him just interfering with the experiment. Unless it's part of a study, researchers aren't supposed to directly interact with their test subjects because it might spoil the outcome. Telling someone the answer to a question would rob them of the satisfaction of having solved it, and if you're testing for that, it would just ruin everything. But what are they testing then? Evidently, some chambers are not just about the portal gun, if they even are in the first place, like the one that introduces the lasers.
I'll start getting everything else working while you perform this first, simple test, which involves deadly lasers and how test subjects react when locked in a room with deadly lasers.
Another example is the one about the faith plate.
It was part of an initiative to investigate how well test subjects could solve problems when they were catapulted into space. Results were highly informative. They could not.
Even the name of the plate suggests they were seeing if people were willing to have faith in them. Now, GLaDOS does mention they're not the sole focus, and she could be lying about these just to mess with your head. However, your trip into Old Aperture supplies us with even more evidence. Cave Johnson describes a lot of different experiments, many of which have absolutely nothing to do with portals whatsoever, some being even completely nonsensical or downright body horror, all the way from 1952 up to the 70s.
Now, maybe you don't have any tumors. Well, don't worry. If you sat on a folding chair in the lobby and weren't wearing lead underpants, we took care of that too. If you're allergic to peanuts, you might want to tell somebody now, because this next test may turn your blood into peanut water for a few minutes. You could walk out of here with 120 weighing down your bindle if you let us take you apart, put some science stuff in you, then put you back together, good as new.
He even reveals that elements you use in your own testing, like the repulsion gel, had control groups.
This first test involves something the lab boys call repulsion gel. You're not part of the control group, by the way. You get the gel. Last poor son of a gun got blue paint.
So it shows that they really were testing everything without any clear focus whatsoever. To put it in his own words,
I'll be honest, we're throwing science at the wall here to see what sticks.
That said, by the 80s, they seem to have settled on the portals, which would explain why the newer test chambers all revolve around them. But even then, the portal gun is barely mentioned, with not even old Aperture making a big deal out of the gun that can create portals through space and time, treating it as just yet another science experiment. So it's really not that important to them at all, more of a common tool they use during other tests, certainly not caring about it enough to really try to find out how they work anymore. Yes, they definitely use portals in their experiments, but just because you give subjects pencils to fill out forms doesn't mean you're testing the effects of graphite on paper. So whatever they were testing in Portal, both 1 and 2, it's not clearly what the name suggests. And this brings me to the last question. Are GLaDOS and Wheatley even testing anything at all? The beginning of the game is undoubtedly not about any tests whatsoever. At first, you're merely trying to escape, and after GLaDOS is back in black, or rather white, she's really only biding time until she has cleaned up the facility and is in charge of it again, which is also when she attempts to murder you. All the while, she's messing with you by insulting you and claiming your parents have come to see you. This might be part of the test, but as I pointed out earlier, it's far too personal and directed at someone that actually destroyed her, so it's more likely she's holding a grudge. It's impossible to tell, since GLaDOS could just be lying about not caring that she was killed, but since she does try to return the favor before you've even finished 1% of the remaining test courses, she's probably telling the truth. Wheatley promptly resumes testing once he's in power, as has been previously discussed, and the parts behind the scenes are really just about you trying to find your way around Aperture. But much like in my first video, this creates a few inconsistencies. I mean, why are there walls with portal surfaces on them all over the place? In Portal 1, you could reasonably explain this by saying it's just stucco or plaster or something, but here, there are moon rocks that cost around 70 million of 1950s to 1980s dollars. So why literally waste them by putting them in areas that don't need them, like the facilities where turrets are made or the neurotoxin is kept? It could be negligence or just stupidity on part of Aperture staff, much like in the old chambers where portal walls are just lying around because no one ever cleaned them up. But did GLaDOS not even learn from her mistakes in the first game? She's shown to be very capable of moving all kinds of walls and objects around without issue, but never once thinks about preventing you from placing portals? Or just trapping you? Even Wheatley is capable of using Aperture to disadvantage by trying to crush you, moving chambers in a way to block you, and even booby-trapping objects. And most of that happens outside of the main rooms as well, so it's not like they're incapable of manipulating certain sections of the facility. But all GLaDOS really does when you escape in the beginning is move a few turrets in your way, turn off a light bridge, after you've already walked over it of course, and while she does try to move a few rooms around to stop you, it's done so slowly that it feels almost deliberate. Admittedly, you do shut off the neurotoxin and replace the turrets so she can use them against you, but those aren't her only weapons, are they? What about the rocket turrets or bombs? Even Wheatley uses them at the end, so it's not like they aren't at her disposal. You could argue that she didn't try more extreme measures in Portal 1, since that's when she had those cores stuck to her, which prevented her from actually using most of her power. But here, when she's completely free of all obstructions, why is she holding back? Well, there's another instance worth mentioning. Immediately after shutting off the neurotoxin, you and Wheatley get whisked away via the broken tube. On the way, he gets separated from you, while you're led directly to the GLaDOS emergency shutdown and cake dispensary chamber, which is plainly a trap. So already, she obviously knew where you were and was easily able to bring you to her. Which makes sense, since this is when the facility is fully operational again. However, there's one other small detail that a lot of people overlooked, and even I only saw it when I replayed the game again for the first time. However, there's one small detail that a lot of people overlooked, and even I only saw it when I replayed the game again for this video. Before you get sucked into the tube, you can see bits of confetti getting sucked into it as well. Now, why would the neurotoxin facility of all places keep that around? For spontaneous nerve poison based festivities? Or maybe GLaDOS knew where you were before you even did anything. But then, why did she not only not kill you, but even practically celebrate your actions of trying to take her down? Well, let's look at the facts. Evidently, only some small parts of the game are actually about treating the player as a test subject, and that's really only when Wheatley takes over. Anything beforehand was just GLaDOS stalling for time / torturing you as she prepared a way to kill you. And anything else was just you blindly stumbling your way around Aperture for the second time. GLaDOS doesn't need to test, and she certainly doesn't want you. So why should she try to keep you around? Well, she didn't. I have two theories. Theory number 1. GLaDOS knew all along what Wheatley was up to. She's not an idiot, and it doesn't take a genius to understand that he wanted to escape alongside Chell. But she didn't mind, since it would be a lot easier to get rid of you that way than by killing you, which she admits at the end.
The best solution to a problem is usually the easiest one. And I'll be honest, killing you is hard.
Or maybe she actually did care about you and was planning to let you go instead of murdering you. Either way, Wheatley stepping into the job for her was very convenient, especially since it allowed for her to keep up her uncaring facade. She knew you were going to sabotage the neurotoxin and take out the turrets, but that's nothing she can't easily fix herself. I mean, how did Wheatley get the neurotoxin back online at the end anyway? Can't have been that hard, even though you severed all the pipes. She just didn't care because it was all according to her plan, since she was already on the road of recovery and didn't really want or need you for anything. However, what she hadn't accounted for was the fact that Wheatley was going to be replacing her as the head AI. It's only then that she starts freaking out, not even really seeming to care about having lost her two main ways of disposing of you previously. But once the core transfer was initiated, her entire plan fell apart, and anything beyond that point was truly outside of her control. So not only was she never intending to keep you inside Aperture for testing purposes, she was already on the way of getting rid of you, one way or another. My second theory is a little more unhinged, if I have to be honest. I theorized that not only was your first escape attempt planned, but also everything else that happened in the game, even, or rather especially, Wheatley. Because Wheatley is not just a random gear that had come loose, he was a failsafe, a method of recovering the Aperture facility and restarting GLaDOS in the case she gets destroyed. I mean, what does Wheatley actually do? Not only does he manage to bring GLaDOS back to life so she can restore everything back to normal, he even indirectly gets you to turn on the mobility gels, which had been turned off for centuries all the way below. Basically, he creates more testing opportunities in the future. Why would a core even want to escape Aperture in the first place? Sure, it's going to explode, but what does a random piece of equipment whose sole purpose is making GLaDOS dumber care? And considering how careless and ill-considered a lot of Aperture solutions to problems are, even bordering moon logic at times, I don't think it's much of a stretch to believe Wheatley to be some sort of extremely roundabout way of restarting GLaDOS in the event of a catastrophe. Granted, he is about to blow the entire place up at the end, but considering this is the same facility that replaces bodily fluids of its subjects with gasoline and has them fighting armies of mantis men, is it really that unlikely? I wouldn't be surprised if their plan was for Wheatley to bum around until he found a human, get them to revive GLaDOS, reactivate any parts important for testing, and in the event of yet another catastrophe, solve that one as well using the same human. Now, this theory seems like it would devalue GLaDOS' character development and the relationship she builds with Chell, but who's to say she even knew about this? I mean, she didn't even recognize the cores as they fell off of her at Portal 1, if we're to believe her. So yes, you, her, and Aperture were in actual danger, and your adventure wasn't as fictional as my theory for Portal 1 suggested. It's just that all that was actually intended from the start, by forces that had long since passed before any other games ever took place. Now, does Wheatley know about any of this? Probably not. I think there's an argument to be made that he really isn't as stupid as we're led to believe, but that's a video for another day if you're interested. For now, however, I think that concludes the video. This time, my theories were a little less out there like in the previous video, and I don't think they really ruin anything about the plot if you use them as headcanons. I find it really interesting just how little of Portal 2 is actually about portals as well, both a single and multiplayer. In a way, they could have completely removed the portal gun and it would have barely affected anything, at least plot-wise. But I'd still love to hear what you think. There were a lot of very interesting comments last time, and I'll absolutely try to read whatever you write down below this time too. And if you've enjoyed this video, consider liking and sharing it, subscribing to my channel, and perhaps even supporting me on Patreon. For just $1, you get to watch videos 1 week earlier, and you get credited at the end of them. Aside from that, you could also take a look at that first Portal video, if I piqued your curiosity. Anything is appreciated. But for now, thank you very much for watching, have a wonderful day, and goodbye.